Welcome to the Spheres of Spirit with Nancy Myers, aka the Lady of the Light. Nancy will discuss the everyday magic and wisdom of spirit which surrounds each of us, waiting to be discovered. She will share some of her remarkable orb photos, proving that our angels, guides, loved ones in spirit, and even pets surround us and guide us in our physical world. During this episode, Nancy will discuss one of the many spheres or aspects of spirit available to us based on her orb photography. She will also share a special channeled message from her guide, Leonini, and do an oracle card reading to help guide you along your personal spiritual adventure. And now, here is your host, orb photographer, author, medium, and speaker, Nancy Myers.
Hi, welcome to the show. I am Nancy Myers. I want to thank you for tuning in today. Today's show, we're going to talk about your spiritual metamorphosis. But it's more than that, it's your physical spiritual metamorphosis. I didn't understand any of this when I first started on my journey. And as these things happened to me, I thought, no one told me any of this. And so I thought today that's what I would kind of talk to you about. Now, this is where I have to do my disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I am not recommending any medical prescriptions or changes. I will only share with you what has happened to me, what I have learned, what could happen, what might happen. But before you make any changes, first sit with it and feel if it's right. And of course, always check with your doctor first. So when you start up your spiritual road, and I'm going to change that. I always hear when people say, oh, I'm going to walk down my spiritual path. I always think to myself, I'm not walking down, I'm walking up. So I'm going to change my wording to that. But when you walk up your spiritual road, as I call it, of course, you're going to expect that your mind changes about things, your beliefs change. You'll see a broadening, an expansion, an acceptance of things. But what I was surprised to determine or to discover was that I began to change physically. And I'm going to share now some of these things that just kind of happened. So what I didn't expect, and I'll start with the very first thing. I'm going to be brutally honest here. I have always dyed my hair since I was a teenager. I was a blonde. And so for years, I mean, 35 years, I dyed my hair. And then I went to the salon and they applied the hair dye. And all of a sudden, my head just broke out in these horrific blisters and hives. And I went, ah! And so anyway, we took that off and my hairdresser said, well, let that settle down and come back. We'll try another. Well, we repeated this over and over and over and over again, maybe 3 or 4 times. I'm a quicker learner than that. And finally, my hairdresser said, I think you're allergic to the hair dye. And I said, I think you're right. I said, maybe this is my cue then just to grow my hair out. And because by this time, I had the white roots. And of course I went home and told my husband, I'm going to let my hair grow natural. And he went, oh no, he loves it. But I really didn't have a choice. I couldn't color my hair anymore. And I thought that very strange, but it was freeing. I did save a lot of money and it's okay. The next thing that happened, and this was probably in a span, these things that I'm talking about, of maybe a year and a half, 2 years. So the next thing that happened, it was my makeup. Now my makeup, I had used the same brand again for decades. One day I put my makeup on and my face swelled up. I looked like a pumpkin. My eyes were shut. I was broken out in these red hives. And of course, I knew that it was my makeup because it happened right after I put my makeup on. And I went, okay, I guess I can't use that makeup anymore. Now, I still haven't connected this to my spiritual journey yet. So I did. I went then and I had to go with all hyperallergenic type makeup, and what is that? Well, it's cleaner, it's fresher, it's less chemical makeup, right? So I did, and then I was fine. The next thing that happened has to do with my diet. Now, I loved hamburgers. I loved red meat. I loved hamburgers. In fact, when I was younger, they used to call me Wimpy because I ate so many hamburgers. Well, over a period of several months, I noticed that when I started eating a hamburger afterwards, it just didn't sit right. Or I started not to be able to look at my husband's rare steak. I'm going, oh God, I can't look at that. Or if I tried to eat pork or if I tried to eat lamb, it just did not agree with my body. Now, this is not something that I set out intentionally to do. I would have never given up my hamburgers. But I said, okay, I'll stop. All right, body, you're trying to tell me something. I'm going to stop. And then one of the other last things that happened so far was, now I enjoyed my cocktail. I'm not a wine drinker. I would have my cocktail or two at night with my husband, my little cranberry vodka, and very light drink. And all of a sudden, that started affecting me in adverse ways. I would have like one drink with maybe an ounce of vodka in it. The next morning, I'd wake up feeling like I was on a 10-day binge. And I went, well, this isn't fun anymore. I would try to switch to something else, and it just, my whole system was on fire. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I started thinking about all these things, and I thought, what's going on here? And I said, the only thing that changed was the direction that I was going with my spirituality. So my body was telling me, you have to change. If you want to reach, you hear the people say to you all the time, I'm sure, and you've heard this before, if you want to reach the spiritual realm, you have to raise your vibration. When I first started, I didn't understand what that meant. I'm going, what do they mean, raise your vibration? How? I don't have a dial on me. I don't have a button to push. I don't understand what that means. Well, I've since come to learn that, of course, part of that is always dropping into your heart and coming from a place of love. That's number one. But the second thing that's important is to be a clear receiver, a pure receiver. And that is what my body was telling me. That is what my guides were telling me. If you want to reach us, if you truly want to raise your vibration and work at that, as you do it, these things will organically fall away because they are not in line with what it is you are trying to do. Now, I didn't, again, understand any of that. I had not read any books. I didn't understand that, your bodies actually change. But I have to tell you, once I did that, once I listened to my body, once I paid attention and did those things and changed, I felt different. I felt lighter. I felt more energetic. I felt more joyful. Just incredible. Now, one of the things that has happened, now I haven't had a drink now for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So, these are things that I hope, most of them I have not gone back to. But it's funny, when I started with my hair, of course I had to grow out the old color. And I noticed as my hair got longer, I go, I think I have a better connection to spirit. And it was kind of a joke. I'm telling people, oh, this is my antenna. This is my antenna, Well, it really was working along with those other things. So I thought I'd research it, because I pictured all the wise women, all the seers, all the mystics, all the prophets, female prophets. They all had long silver hair, right? So I looked up this, and this is what I found. In the American Native culture, they believed that long hair has a symbolic significance connecting Mother Earth and Mother Nature, connecting you to Mother Earth and Mother Nature. They believe that long hair is a physical manifestation of the growth of the spirit. And some say it allows for extrasensory perception and connection to all things. It's exactly what I was feeling without knowing why. And that's when you know, okay, this didn't come from me. This came from spirit, and they're bringing me along. So they were telling me how important it was for me to do all these things if I wanted to continue having a better connection, and if I wanted to continue in my service to spirit with my work with the orbs and the mediumship and the channeling. So I did it. Number one, I really didn't have a whole lot of choice because literally it made me sick. But I did it because spirit told me, and I saw the results. So let me bring up the slide here if I could, Chris, the first slide. So this slide, it's one of my latest orbs, by the way, just magnificent. But it says the moment that you change your perception is the moment that you rewrite the chemistry in your body. That's by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Let me read that again. The moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry in your body. Thank you, Chris, for that. He also adds, use gratitude to get a higher perspective. So we literally, and he also has 2 books. I'll let you know. Dr. Bruce Lipton is very respected in the metaphysical world. And 2 books that you might be interested if you want to follow up on this information. One is called The Biology of Belief, and the other one is called The Honeymoon Effect. So you literally, when you change your belief system, when you change the way you think, when you go through this cleaning or this detoxifying or move to a more pure intake of food and drink and air, your body, the chemistry literally changes. You know, there's kind of, I tell people there's a kind of a collision course of science and spirituality. And I think it's great. When they finally collide, I think it's going to be wonderful. Because mystics and spiritual people of the ancient past have known this for a long time. But what I like now is science is actually agreeing or proving or acknowledging, yeah, these things are real. I was listening to the television the other day, and there was a doctor on, and he had this to say about how we handle our thoughts and emotions and how it affects physically our bodies. He said, I have always been interested in the fact that our thoughts and emotions can tangibly impact our health, and vice versa. It is a reciprocal relationship. This is certainly true in the case of gratitude. Reflecting on what you are grateful for can objectively change the way your brain works. It does this by increasing the serotonin and dopamine. These are hormones that make us feel good, and they've measured this. It also does this by regulating stress hormones, and over time, this forges and strengthens pathways in our brains as well. So he's just saying what Dr. Bruce Lipton said. Over time, this rewrites the chemistry of your body. And in this case, these hormones forge, and these feelings forge and strengthen pathways that make us feel good. They're proving this. They're testing this. So what this doctor wanted us to do as an exercise, and you can do it mentally or you can write it down, but this helps rewrite the chemistry of your body, is to write down or say 3 things that you're grateful for, or tell somebody 3 things that you're grateful for. every day if you can. Because the more that you do that, the more that you rewrite the chemistry of your body. So, what does changing the diets and chemicals do? Well, when you put those kinds of synthetic chemicals or toxins in your body, it has an adverse effect to the way, especially the way our spiritual connection works. So I'm going to stop here just for a minute because I want to tell you, I kind of sort of have a special guest today, and it is my guide, Leonini. Now, if you've been following my podcast, you know Leonini is my guide, my higher self, and I sit and I channel her. And usually before my podcast, I will sit and I will ask her if she has a special message for my listeners. So this time when I did it, she said to me, no, I've already given them to you. Have me on your show, but via my messages. Go back and look at the messages I have already given you. I've given you this information. 80% of Leonini's messages that she gives to me, well, 70 to 80, it touches always on the importance of meditation. But here's the first one. Here's her first message that she gave to me to share with you today. It was really interesting because I also have probably, 150, 160 messages from her over the last 3 years, 4 years. So I don't remember them all. And when I went back, the ones that I needed today literally almost jumped off the page at me. And I went, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. So let me share this message with you that she wanted me to read first. Some believe that it is the brain that animates the body. It is really the consciousness of the soul that animates the body. For without this consciousness, the body does not move. The brain is, however, an important component in this process. And deep inside your brain resides a mechanism which helps make the union between consciousness and the body stronger. It is called the pineal gland, or the pineal gland, as some say, and it is your built-in antenna. This is not a new revelation, but in your current world, there are many toxins affecting this antenna, as well as your entire body. When the body is cleared and detoxified, your antenna will be better able to tune into this higher station, and your body will be stronger. The wisdom of the universe awaits all who search. This message was given to me in March of 2019, and there she is talking about what the toxins do. But she brings up something that I'm going to talk about next, and it's called the pineal gland or pineal gland. The pineal gland, I just say pineal because it's easier for me to say. It rolls off my tongue easier that way. The pineal gland sits in the center of your brain, and it's a tiny little gland that's in the I always forget that word, endocrine system. It's the top one. And I'm going to show you a picture of it, as a matter of fact, because I have a cross section of the brain. So I'm going to show you, and there you have it. For those who are listening, this is a cross section of the brain, and you can see the circle in the very center, and that is a depiction of the pineal gland. However, the pineal gland looks like a pine cone, which is fascinating because I'm going to tell you why. So the pineal gland, let me read this because this is really important. Throughout the span of recorded human history, pine cones have served as a symbolic representation of human enlightenment, the third eye, and the pineal gland. The pine trees, the conifer pine trees, are one of the most ancient plant genera on the planet, having existed nearly 3 times longer than all flowering plants species. The pine cone is the evolutionary precursor to the flower, and its spines spiral in a perfect Fibonacci sequence in either direction, much like the sacred geometry of a rose or a sunflower. Our pineal gland, shaped like the pine cone and named after the pine cone, is at the geometric center of our brain and is intimately linked to our body's perception of light. The pineal modulates our wake-sleep patterns and circadian rhythms, remains uniquely isolated from the blood-brain barrier system, and receives a higher percentage of blood flow than any other area of the body except the kidneys. It is considered by many to be our biological third eye, the seat of our soul, the epicenter of enlightenment, and its sacred symbol throughout history in cultures around the world has been the pine cone. You can find pine cone statues or recreations, literally, like it says, all over the world, in the ancient temples, in the ancient megalithic structures, in all the special areas, and it crosses all civilizations. So now I mentioned the Fibonacci sequence. I hope you're familiar with that, but that's a mathematical sequence of numbers associated with sacred geometry, and it's everywhere. And the Fibonacci circle is closely associated with the golden ratio, which is in all nature. If you want to know more about this, I'm not the one to ask because I'm horrible at math. But there's a wonderful YouTube video. It's called What is the Fibonacci Sequence and the Golden Ratio? A simple explanation and examples in everyday life. If you watch that, I think it's a 3 or 4 minute YouTube, you go, now I understand what that is. Very important in sacred geometry and the creation of the universe because it's in everything. So back to the pineal gland. The ancient Egyptians had a symbol. Let me put this down here because it's rolling off here. The ancient Egyptians had a symbol, and this was a very sacred symbol to them, and it's called the Eye of Horus, and I hope you can see that right there. Now, this symbol has many meanings, but it can also represent protection, wisdom, sacredness, and again, it was very important. If you want to learn where this came from, you can go and research the mythology of Isis and Horus and Osiris. And if you know anything about the Egyptian mythology, they chopped them up and then put them back together and all that. But this is a very sacred symbol. So the Egyptians, assigned fractions to each part of that symbol. Now, what I'm going to show you is how the symbol overlays on the human brain. And here you go. That's the symbol of the Eye of Horus, and it fits perfectly over the pineal gland and the cutaway of the human brain. That is not a coincidence. The Egyptians, of course, did many things with organs and stuff. So they took out organs and saw them all the time. But what made them believe or know that the spiritual center was the pineal gland? They knew because it was ancient wisdom handed down over and over and over. Now, what happens to our pineal gland is what I've read, is that when we eat these toxins, when we take in these chemicals, for some reason, I can't explain it to you, It calcifies over our pineal gland, literally putting a coating around it. So what does that do? It cuts off our ability with our third eye and our connection to spirit. So I think that spirit was telling me to change what I was putting on, what I was consuming, what I was drinking to help me knock out and tear down that calcification. Now, something has changed, definitely, because I'm doing things, seeing things, feeling things, talking to spirits in ways that I have never, ever been able to do. And there are also ways for you to do it. You can go online and whatever resonates with you. Sometimes there's vitamins, sometimes there's drinks, sometimes, there's all kinds of things, meditations, whatever works for you. Spirit, in its infinite wisdom, kind of sort of did it for me. So I didn't have to do that. So when I come back, I'm going to talk more about the Eye of Horus, the pineal gland, and our clairs. So we'll be right back.
OMTimes TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
Okay, welcome back. So let's continue our conversation about the Eye of Horus. So I'm going to hold that up again, and I'm going to talk about the fractions and what they represent that the Egyptians assigned to this symbol. So you see that it's 6 parts. It's been broken down and assigned with the fractions 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32, and 1/64. These fractions were familiar to the Egyptians because they're called the Heqat, Heqat fractions, and that's a system that they used for measuring grain and flour. But they all have the power of 2 in their denominators and 1 in their numerators. So each of these fractions that they assigned to the Eye of Horus also corresponds to a human sense. So for instance, 1/2 is the sense of smell. 1/4 represents sight. 1/8 represents thought. 1/16 represents hearing. And 1/32 represents taste, while the 1/64 represents touch. So I'll hold that up again so you can see 1/4 is in the center and then it goes around. So they assign those to our 5 senses in the world, in this physical world. But when we go to the spiritual world, we use those 5 senses, but they're called different things and they're used in a different way. For example, the sense of smell through our nose in the physical, when we use it in the spiritual, we say it's clairalience. In other words, when I bring in a spirit, sometimes I can smell, let's say I'm bringing in grandma, and I can smell an apple pie. It's not really there. I'm smelling it with my spiritual sense. The 1/4 sight, that's seeing. So in the spiritual sense, it's clairvoyance. I can see it. Sometimes I can see it with my physical eyes, but most of the time I see it with my third eye. 1/8 represents thought. That's claircognizance. It's when you just know something. You're connected to that higher consciousness, all one conscious mind. The 1/16 again was hearing. In the spiritual world, when you hear, that's clairaudient. Sometimes with Leonini, I hear both, or I'll hear my son say something like when I asked him, what should I name this show? And then I heard the spheres of spirit. And he was being funny because of the orbs. But that's it, you hear in a different way. So taste, the same thing, that's called clairgustience. And touch is clairsentience. So those are kind of the 5, is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 senses that we can what's the word I want? We can understand them in the physical, but then we take them and tweak them just a little bit when we do the spiritual. So Leonini wanted me to read this to you about this. While your soul resides in, and this was just recent, but I had no idea that I was going to be using this on my show. While your soul resides in your human body, you have access to 5 senses to help you maneuver through your life. You have been given sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. No one sense is more important than the other. However, you have witnessed people without sight learning to see in a different way. People who cannot hear, hearing in a different way. People who are unable to speak, communicating in a different way. When you think about your 5 senses, we believe that you would agree that they are indeed miraculous. But we are here to talk about this today because there are so many other ways to use and expand your awareness, your knowledge, and your compassion. Yes, you see with your eyes, but also see with your heart. Yes, you hear with your ears, but also hear with your mind. You can touch with your hands, but feel with your being. You can smell with your nose, but inhale the fragrance of life. And you can taste with your tongue, but drink up all the beauty around you. When you allow the use of your senses to go beyond the limitations that most impose upon themselves, you will experience so much more of your existence. So I'm talking about this and tying it into the pineal gland because the Egyptians did. They recognized the importance of that gland. They recognized the importance of being clean and pure and able to take those senses to another level. Now, look, if you fall back, and we all do, if you slip up, no worries. just do it again. But there's another thing that I want to talk about and how it affects your body. And we have probably all heard this because I know we have all heard about meditation. And most meditations, especially guided ones, will start out with take a clean breath, clean inhale, cleansing breath, and release. And then do that again. And then get the rhythm to your breathing. Well, here's the importance of breath work while meditating and what it does to your body, which again, scientifically, they have identified. So, first of all, the power of the breath is like an anti-anxiety pill. Why? The slow breathing stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that is what controls the heart rate. So it reduces the heart rate and relaxes the mind. The power of the breath can be an immune booster. Why? Because the diaphragmatic breathing, which means breathing from your diaphragm instead of just your lungs, actually expands your lungs, which increases oxygen absorption, which lowers cortisol levels and lowers your blood pressure. The power of the breath affects your digestive system. How? Again, it increases blood flow, helping digestive organs work more efficiently. And one that I love, speeds up your metabolism. Because as I get older, my metabolism's really slowing. So I really have to watch my calorie intake. But also, breath work helps with sleep, stress, and energy. Again, these are things that the ancients knew. They understood this, but they didn't have the science to measure it and quote unquote prove it other than how they felt. So this is just another way of how being on a spiritual journey affects you physically, but it affects you in the most wonderful ways. So, like I said, if you fall back and you goof up, just start over again. It's okay. So I want to make sure I didn't skip one of my slides here, but I think I'm okay. So here is what Leonini had to say about if something happens and you need to start over, or something hit you really hard and knocked you off your trajectory. If you are suffering from a headache, you reach for a reliable pain reliever. In this one, she showed me a bottle of aspirin, one that has been proven safe and effective over many years and is readily available. It makes sense to seek and use a reliable remedy to help ease the pain. In life, there may be times when your heart aches from the effects of grief or a feeling that you are all alone. It is during these times that we remind you of the proven remedy available to you, a daily dosage of prayer and meditation to reconnect you to all that is. This remedy is not taken with water, but it is absorbed through the heart, through love. Its healing effects are released to you, and it will, in fact, spread to others around you. There is no need for you to suffer when a remedy is available to all who reach for it. It's just, yes, these things are there for us. We just have to take the steps to re-access them and become familiar with them again. Now, one of the things, too, that I noticed as I was on my spiritual path was my ears would start to ring. And I don't know how many of you have that. Every once in a while, you just get this powerful ringing in your ear. Now, I don't have tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on how you say it, which is a constant ringing in your ear. And it always seems to happen, I'm pointing here, but it always seems to happen in my left ear. And it started again when I was on the spiritual path. And maybe you've experienced that. What is that? Is that a noise that we're picking up? Like, I don't know. First, I used to equate it because nobody else could hear it, like the level of a dog whistle. Well, here's what I learned because my husband came down with tinnitus and we did all these studies. He's since doing better. But your ears don't produce sound. It comes from your brain. So when people say I have a ringing in my ear, your ear's not making that noise. It's coming from your brain. Now, some say when the ringing starts, I hear a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm getting downloaded." There's a lot of truth to that. So what is that ringing in your ear? It's a shift to a higher vibration, a higher consciousness. And it's it's they said that it's picked up. There's these little fibers in your ear called cochlea. And the cochlea are actually in a spiral shape. One day we'll talk about how important that spiral shape is to all ancient religions and civilizations. It's in everywhere. It's kind of like reaching higher and going higher on your path. A very important symbol throughout all cultures. But these cochlea hairs are spiral shaped, and they pick up these. Their job is to transfer sound to impulses to the brain. That's their job. Again, they're not making noise. They're telling the brain, this is what now you should be hearing. And the brain hears it. So when we raise our vibration and we literally do start getting communication with spirit, a lot of times it comes into our subconscious. It always doesn't come into our physical body or our spiritual body. It comes into also. So that is part of what that can be. It also can be that the left ear is going directly to the left brain, and then those sounds go directly to the pineal gland. So you see how important all this is. So there's these physical things that happen when you are on this spiritual journey. And when you understand it, and when you start to receive it and embrace it and educate yourself on it, then you understand how far it can take you and how beneficial it can be. It's just been it's been quite a journey. It really has, of learning, of reading about these things, of experiencing these things. So I want to go to okay, sorry. So let me read the next Leonini message, because this is what she's saying about if you literally fall off your spiritual wagon and have to come back and start over again. If you fall and break your arm, it often requires a cast. After the bone has been realigned, the cast is put on to hold it in place so that the bone may knit back together and become strong to help support the limb. The doctor gives instructions that should be followed in order for the arm to heal properly. If there is a break in your spiritual connection or faith, or if you have suffered an emotional hurt, praying for comfort and healing is like a trip to the doctors. The divine responds by realigning your heart and your spirit, and then putting a cast of light around you for support to give you time to mend and to heal. The healing process occurs during quiet times, interreflection, and meditation. Just like the doctor's instructions, be gentle with yourself and please allow time to heal. When you pray for assistance, know that we work together, and together is how the healing occurs. So don't feel bad if you get knocked off that road and you have to dust yourself off and get back. Just ask for help. So I want to tell you that this is what happened to me. Everybody's not going to experience this. In fact, I know a very, very good medium. She's one of the best in the world. And after she does readings or whatever, she'll go and have a cocktail, and it doesn't affect her. It affected me, but that was my body. That was me. That was my journey. So what I'm telling you is everything that I shared with you today could or could not affect you, or even things that I didn't bring up today, you may find that you're feeling or changing. Just understand them. Take time to sit with them. So if we could bring up the next slide. I went out. Oh, I'm sorry. I did forget that one. I had a reading with a medium, and my son Robbie came in, and the medium said, I've never heard this word, but he wants me to give you this word. It's sanguine. She goes, do you know what that means? And I said, no, I don't. And I looked it up. And the reason this is teal color orb that I have is because that's Robbie's color. When he appears, when he appears as an orb, he comes in as a teal orb. Excuse me. So sanguine means being optimistic or positive, especially in an apparently bad or difficult situation. So just as Leonini says, when you get knocked off or there's tumult around you or there's been a tremendous tragedy or grief, then sit with it. Try to stay positive. Now, I'm not telling everybody to be a Pollyanna and say, well, that's not going to affect me, or not acknowledging that. No, one of the most powerful things that we have is how we let things affect us, how we react. That's where our power is. You can have the most mean person give you an insult, and you can take it to heart, or you can understand that where they're coming from must be a very painful place for them to try and inflict that much pain on someone else. So you look at it differently, but you remain calm, you remain in love. You do not get drugged down to their level of vibration. You don't want to do that. It's just like people say, I'm going to hold a grudge. I'll never forgive you. I just can't. And that goes back to that saying of, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't do anything to that person, but it eats you alive from the inside out. So sit with that. Try to be sanguine. I'm going to share that word with you, sanguine. Just try still to be optimistic. And when you follow what I've just described and you've made that better connection, then you automatically understand that there is so much more than just this life here, just life in this physical. There is such a grander plan and scheme, and that we are all connected. We all come from one source, and one day we will all return to that source. It broadens your horizons and your belief systems, and the broader your belief systems, I don't want to say the less trivial or the smaller life becomes, but perhaps it will have less of an impact, because it's literally just a fleeting moment. And one day we will all be surrounded by eternal love. So healthy, okay, if I can bring up that next slide now, Chris. So this slide, I just took this picture the other night, and you can see, oh my gosh, there's a plethora of orbs here. For those of you listening, you can go to OMTimes Radio and see all these pictures, or you can go to my website, theorbconnection.com, and these are on there, or my Facebook page, The Orb Connection. But this one says, healthy is an outfit that looks different on everyone. And that's important. We are all individuals here. Everybody's on their own journey. It's just like I said, what happened to me may not happen to you. I'm not telling you that if you follow this, that you're going to be a size 2 and be a model. That's not what this is about. What doing this work means is we are healthy, spiritually healthy. And when you're spiritually healthy, it can mean peace, joy, harmony, and love. And when you experience that, that will shine through, and you'll see that we are all beautiful beings, no matter what we look like on the outside. So thank you, Chris. So I have one more channel from Leonini that she wanted me to share with you. And this is actually one of my favorites. So I'm going to share this one with you. It was channeled on June of last year. In order to find peace, be peaceful. In order to be loved, give love. In order to find joy, be joyful. In order to be healed, be the healer. In order to learn, be the teacher. In order to be helped, give help. In order to walk hand in hand, reach. In order to be fed, feed. In order to mend, sew. In order to be supported, support. In order to reach divinity, be divine. In order to dispel darkness, be light. In order to find harmony, sing the praises of others. In order to rise, awaken. I just love that. So, one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, and if we can bring up that next slide. Now, this isn't an orb, but I raise monarch butterflies, and these were some of my babies. And this slide says, the greatest gift you have to give is that of your own self-transformation. And that's what I feel like I have gone through, is a self-transformation thanks to Spirit. And I feel so much better. I feel so much lighter. I feel so much more connected. And the peace that comes with that you can't put a price on that. So I hope that this has helped you a little bit. So let me do the card reading real quick. And since we were talking about transformation, I have my butterfly deck. So I'm going to shuffle these and pull a card that hopefully will help you with some decisions that you need to make about your own self-transformation. If you have any questions about today's podcast or you want to reach me, you can write to me at the orbconnection@gmail.com or through my website. And I will do my very best to get back to everybody. So let's see what they want to share here. This one right here. Okay. Well, this is very interesting. So I pulled a card and it says religion and spirituality. And that's actually the butterfly that's on the card. So what this card is telling me and you, and what they want me to share, is that religion and spirituality can exist side by side. When I first started on this path, I kind of turned away a little bit from religion, and my son said, "Mom, there's always a place for religion. It's kind of the beginning of a spiritual path." And I got a moving orb the other day, and I posted on there. It said, "Religion is the runway, and spirituality is takeoff." So, but they go hand in hand. They both can play. People ask me, "Do you still believe in Jesus?" And I tell them, I'm closer to Jesus now than ever before. So know that religion even is metamorphing, changing a little bit more into spirituality. And so maybe not for everybody, but it was for me. And there's a place for both. So please don't judge anyone who is on their own path. There's no place for that. So I want to tell you, I'm super excited. Next time, in 2 weeks, the last Thursday of this month, I have a special guest, Suzanne Giesman. And for those of you who have not heard Suzanne or about Suzanne, she's an author, 13 books. She's a teacher of what she calls the Awakened Way, a mindful approach to living in awareness that we are not only human, but part of one interconnected web of higher consciousness. Suzanne is recognized worldwide as a speaker, channeler, and podcast host. She went from a military senior officer, or excuse me, I should say senior military officer, to a leader in the evolution of human consciousness. My son kind of arranged this. I'm really honored that Suzanne agreed to be on my show, and you won't want to miss this one. It's going to be a very interesting talk and interview about her journey and how she went from the military to literally being a leader in the metaphysical spiritual world. It's going to be fascinating. I have a minute, I think, and I wanted to share something with you that happened to me. It's not an orb, but I did go out a week or so ago and at night, as I always do, to take my orb pictures. But this time I said, oh, I don't have any more time. I'll tell you next time. Okay, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.